In Mythic Battles, we have literal divine beings using every power, every move they possibly can to navigate their sovereign people to battle, utilizing every spell and cheap trick in the book to accomplish their own agenda. While many fall for the glory of battle, some rise, leaving you bewildered and excited for more. Their bloodlust becomes so contagious that sometimes you forget that you're not really there. Welcome to our new series, The Units of Mythic Battles. Hello, my name is Weston, and this is The Lighter the Darker. Welcome to our third episode of the series where we talk about the units in Mythic Battles, the units that occupy our minds even when we're playing other games, the units that were so thoughtfully made by so many people working together that we just have to honor them with an entire series. Now, we are talking about Odin and Heimdall from the Asgard expansion. Last episode, we chose Brunhild and Bodvar. Now you see, Bodvar was off of the suggestion from Andreas, and we chose Odin this time from a new commenter, Victor. Good to see you, Victor. I also really love Odin. Odin was actually the first god I picked when playing Ragnarok. One more note about Odin is that he is unlike any other god. You see, he costs 8 recruitment points, whereas Heimdall and most other gods only cost 6 RP. I had considered comparing Odin with a Titan, but I ultimately chose Heimdall for a few particular reasons. 1. Both of these gods have notable similarities and differences that I've thought about at length, since I do tend to draft both of these gods. And 2. They fit thematically together in the Asgard expansion. Sorry, BGA players. Also, Pantheon lovers, you will love next episode even more. Now, jumping into the similarities. Both of these units are gods. Now, one of the most obvious similarities is their stats. Both Odin and Heimdall start with 8 attack and 9 defense, which quickly falls within the first few wounds of battle. Odin sustaining his attack longer, where Heimdall sustains his defense longer. Additionally, they both start with 2 movement. Heimdall falls to 1 movement at 8 health, whereas Odin doesn't lose movement until most of his health is removed. Speaking of health, both of them have 10, which is the highest that we've seen a god carry. Lastly, there's another huge component that makes these two alike, and I'm very excited to talk about this juxtaposition as well as their talents and powers. But first, let's dive into one of my favorite parts of this series, where we look at their sculpts and their artwork. I realize that I tend to be very passionate about the way I speak about Monolith's designs. I assure you, it's not just to extend the script or butter up some corporation. As both somebody who is a creative but also appreciates analysis, I have spent a lot of time finding a game of this caliber. The art and system perfectly synergize, and we are left with a gem like none other. Currently, Odin is my favorite Mythic Battles miniature. There's just something about the look on his face as he rests solemnly on his octo-legged steed. with Heimdall, we see that even as he blows his Gilgahorn, he is ever ready for battle. His vigilance shines through his third eye as he grips his sword. In Norse mythology, Odin is what is known as the All-Father. He is both the creator of the 9 worlds and the conduit of creation for humans, dwarves, and many other gods and goddesses. Odin's granddaughter, Hel, daughter of Loki and Angerboda, and if you've been paying attention, that means Hel is Fenrir's sister. Well, she was given domain over the underworld by none other than the All-Father himself, or as I like to call him, entirely Dad, or ED. I guess it happens when you age. Anyway, Odin didn't sign away all of his power. You see, he still stewards the Valkyries. Odin never tends to disappoint those who devote themselves to his cause, blessing those with victory, immense power, and nightly feasts. Those who have been lucky enough to receive his power include Gary and Freki, translating to the greedy and the ravenous, the berserkers who will cut through anybody who attempt to stand in their way, and the Einherjar, which accompany him into battle at Ragnarok, where his other grandchild, Fenrir, will swallow him whole after experiencing the events of what we spoke about in episode 1. The story ends with Vidar, Odin's last son, slaying the beast to avenge his father. Another son of Odin is Heimdall, the guardian of this mystical realm you see. This is known as Bifrost. This place serves as a prismatic bridge that connects Asgard and Midgard, allowing gods to embark into the land of humans in a moment's notice. At this crossroads, Heimdall's border control duties hold unfathomable significance. In preparation for Ragnarok, he requires an unheard level of vigilance, equipped with senses that could so-called hear silence and smell the growing grass. One of his duties is to watch for giants at Bifrost Gate, as this was prophesied to kickstart the battle to end reality as we know it. Heimdall inherited such a sense of protection from the 9 mothers who bore him and raised him, though throughout his life he grew to have an arch nemesis, one god that tends to get on everybody's bad side, none other than Loki. See, when the day of Ragnarok comes, Heimdall could not foresee that the sons of Muspel, the die-hard devotees of Surt, would ride across the bridge unscathed by his defenses. Heimdall, occupied by battling Loki, fought valiantly. He spent his last moments protecting what he was destined to. Their duel ends where they both are slaughtered by each other's hand. Now, although the history of these characters is deeply interesting, I want to talk about how they function in battle. Last episode, I introduced this idea that we could loosely categorize the unit of Mythic Battles. You essentially have 4 classes. First, we have the forward attackers. These are units made to slay divinities. They have high power, high attack, high movement, oftentimes some sort of ability that helps them take down divinities, as in Fenrir's Godslayer or Brunhild's Grudge. They oftentimes have mobility and berserk and are very self-protective. Then we have what I call the movers and the shakers. These guys are great at getting gems and interrupting the enemy's plans. They do tend to have high movement, climb or flying, and gem collector. Next, we have the mid defenders, always hanging out 2 to 3 areas away from your divinity, keeping enemies away and getting easy gems if needed. They oftentimes have block. Then we have the goalies. They will always have guard, little to no movement, high defense, close protection and mighty throw to get those enemies away. Considering this father-son duo, I would also say that they fit into two different classes. Heimdall would be a mover and a shaker, where Odin is more of a forward attacker. Now I will say that because gods tend to be so powerfully versatile, it's obviously harder to try and fit them into a box. But to better argue my case, let's look back at their character boards. Now, if we're considering the stats of Heimdall, he kind of looks like a forward attacker, but it's when we look at his talents and powers, we start to see a different picture. Heimdall has block, which restricts an enemy unit from walking, running, or ascending actions when this unit is in their area. This talent does not affect other units with block. Then he has Gem Collector, a classic mover and shaker talent. That's not all. Remember that last similarity I spoke about? Well, remember this. Gem Collector allows Heimdall to claim a gem from any visible area in his surroundings. Then we have Monster Slayer, which allows the unit to reroll 2 dice during the first assault when facing a monster. His first power is an offensive ability. It will cost 1 Art of War card to activate, and it's titled Gilgahorn. This ability allows Heimdall to make a range 2 normal attack. Units don't count as obstacles when determining whether the target is visible. If the target unit is not a divinity, the unit also immediately drops any claimed divine stone. This attack is extremely powerful if you have ever played Heimdall. It really changes how the game flows, and this is also another way that relates Odin to Heimdall, talking about these gem powers, which we'll look at some more. Something that's super powerful is to be able to make someone drop a gem, and then using Heimdall or someone else's gem collector ability to steal it from another area is super strong, and I have actually just won by extending the game long enough by using this ability. Next we have Vigilance. This is a permanent power. At the end of Heimdall's activation, if an enemy unit is in his surroundings, the active player can take the first card from their deck or discard one of the cards in their hand to draw 2 from their deck. This will absolutely help you get the cards you need, which is honestly pretty rare in Mythic Battles. You can very easily put a team together and then just find yourself stuck with not the right cards, not enough Art of War cards, whatever it is. But this does help because you will find that Heimdall is helpful in the battle rather than just hanging back. Looking over Odin's board, we can see that we also have 3 talents. Berserk, which allows him to make 2 consecutive normal attack actions. Classic forward attacker. He also has Block and Hero Slayer, which works just like the Monster Slayer, but activates against heroes. Lastly, Odin is a flying unit, which gives him access to 2 additional complex actions. The first one is Aerial Attack, which allows this unit to ignore any terrain effects of the area they occupy, make an attack with a bonus range +1 buff, and then when this unit determines its target, it ignores obstacles. The second, more, I would say, useful ability that they also obtain is the Fast Flight. Fast Flight allows you to go from one point to the map using your movement with a +1 buff, ignoring obstacles. Additionally, Fast Flight units are not stopped when entering enemy areas. His first power is an offensive power. It is called Mutilating Rage and costs an Art of War card. It states, choose an area in Odin's surroundings. Each enemy unit in this area suffers a 6 dice normal attack, and these attacks cannot be in any way redirected. That's referencing guard or any other ability that might take your attack and put it on someone else. This overrides that, which honestly is pretty rare and very strong, totally fits for Odin and his Mutilating Rage. But you might end up using this other ability a little bit more. it's called Master of Runes. Although it costs an Art of War card, it's an active ability. This means you can do it on top of your turn as long as you didn't do any complex actions. Now it says, at the beginning of his activation, Odin can consider any divine stone in his area as unclaimed for this turn. This is so powerful because an enemy who has a claimed stone in your area, you can just absorb that from them. It is very strong. Whether you want to go for a slaying divinity kind of game or a gem team, this I've seen rushes your opponent when you start to do it, but also, can draw them out of battle. And lastly, he gets Gary and Frecky immediately when you recruit him for 0 RP if you would like, which I absolutely recommend. They are a very powerful troop, and it's very reminiscent of Circe and her wolves, but I like Odin's wolves better. As tremendously strong as these units are, everything in Mythic Battles can be countered. These are the units I would choose to counter Odin and Heimdall. I pick units like this every episode and have previously called them the jerks, but we'll call them the counters for clarity's sake from now on. These units all have their interesting way of interrupting our main stars, from stripping their powers away to entirely wasting your god's activation. Let's talk about them one by one, starting with the Draugr. This Skyrim zombie's main ability is that he will absolutely restrict anyone from absorbing or claiming gems in his area. That hinders both of their special collecting feats. Additionally, the Draugr cannot take more than 2 wounds, buying more time against Odin's Berserk. Moving on, Marsyas is the most annoying unit to face in the game, and he only costs 1 RP. He has these challenge tokens that can go only on enemy divinities. Marsyas doesn't even need to be anywhere near this divinity either. He puts them into a trance that makes the divinity waste its activation by moving towards him. And if it can't move, then it does absolutely nothing. Not to mention that this token strips away all of the talents and powers when the carrier makes an attack action against Marsyas. Needless to say, the stronger the god, the more effective this is. Third, we have the Frost Jotun, or the Frost Giant. Same idea. Here, we want to waste our god's turns. The Frost Jotun also comes cheap at 2 RP. With his Icy Touch, he forces the polar terrain effect on an enemy in his area. Once a unit starts its turn, they receive a wound and can only carry out 1 simple or complex action. The Frost Jotun has 2 movement, making it easy to follow someone attempting to flee from him. With Scout and Horde, you can ensure the Frost Jotun will be on the board for the entire game. Lastly, I want to mention Nord, as these are gods we're trying to take down. He counters both Heimdall and Odin perfectly. First, his whirlwind offensive power works just like Helios from Pantheon, but just a little bit different. He makes an area attack and then can move one of the units attacked to his area or 1 area further away. His second ability is a direct counter to Odin, because flying units cannot use either of those additional complex abilities against Nord, to attack him or to cross his path. Additionally, Nord transforms the area he stands on into a water terrain for only himself and his enemies. For those in water terrain, any offensive powers or talents are ignored, unless you are an aquatic like Nord. Out of these 3, you should have your pick for taking down either Odin or Heimdall. I want to ask you, who is the stronger character? Is it Odin because he has 8 RP, or is it Heimdall with his 6 RP? And who would be your pick of the counters? My name is Weston, and this has been the Units of Mythic Battles. Thank you so much for taking the time to come by The Lighter the Darker, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.